EMR Patient Encounter Face Sheet Overview. When opening a patient's encounter in prognosis, the default view is going to be the face sheet. Now, the patient's face sheet is the static part of the chart. In other words, the patient's history, which carries forward from one visit to the next. Once appointments have become encounters, there are then encounter level face sheets as well. These are going to include not only the history level data, but also visit level data, such as allergies, current medications, medical and surgical history, and so on. There's also some clinical workflows that are part of the face sheet, such as health maintenance and vaccination administration. In addition, you can have customized face sheet cells that will give you some specific read-only data or access to direct templates. And finally, you can have multiple face sheets, which includes up to 9 additional custom layouts based on locally defined parameters. So I'm going to log into Prognosis, and we're going to look at the face sheet from various perspectives. In general, most users will have at least read access to the face sheet. It is a permission-based role, however, under configuration, and you can see more about defining user permissions in our user profile and login credentials video. Navigating through the face sheet is no different from one user to the next, regardless of read-only or modification permissions. Now, there are some system parameters involved that the administrator can control the behavior. Some of these are default behaviors in the system, and some of them are based on local preferences. There is a separate video on creating custom face sheets in which those properties will be elaborated on. Now, I've opened up Donna Paulson's encounter screen, and by default, the encounter does open to the face sheet. Now, here in the case of Donna, since she is an existing patient, notice it is opened to my last encounter progress note. Now, this is actually a face sheet that has been customized specific for follow-up visits. If I open up a new patient encounter, for instance, Diego Martinez, who is a new patient, notice his face sheet that defaults is different. And if we look here in the upper right, we're on the face sheet default. This is the standard default face sheet, 1, for all new patients, and 2, for any of you who have never created multiple or custom face sheets, this will always be the only face sheet out there. Typically, as you see here, this is going to be all of your basic patient history. We've got our current medications, allergies, past medical history. The second row, we have our surgical history, social history, family history, and then across the bottom, our clinical workflows of vaccination, health maintenance, and then here we have one called internal notes. Now, you'll notice that there are 9 squares. These are arranged in 3 rows of 3 columns each. When it comes to the configuration of your face sheets, you do have the ability of modifying this in any configuration within those 9 squares. And again, that is going to be elaborated on in our custom face sheet. What we're looking at in today's video is just the overview of the face sheet screen. So we're going to discuss the way you navigate throughout the face sheet. Now, we're on an established patient here for Donna Paulson. And you'll notice here that a lot of the data that is present is shaded in that yellow color. Within our face sheet, we have color coding. The yellow indicates that that historical information is being brought forward from previous visits. If you go all the way back to the original visit where the data was entered, you'll notice that now some shows up in a green color. That green is an indication that the data was added as of that encounter date. And that is how the face sheet reflects both historical data as well as encounter level data. Now, when the background color of the square is white, that means that it is available for data entry. If we're on a face sheet, for instance here, our last encounter progress note, where it's gray, that means it is read-only. There is no data access. It's actually pulling data which was entered somewhere else. If we look at one of our custom face sheets here, the provider workflow info, for instance, notice here you can have a variety of data and a variety of configurations on your face sheet based on your local needs. In this example, they're all gray because it's read-only. It is simply displaying the data the physician wants, but it was entered elsewhere on the chart. Now, if I just go back here to my default face sheet, In the most common scenarios, this information is just going to be verified during patient intake. So you can click this checkbox across the top that says check all. And when I do that, notice that each of these squares has a little white box in the upper left next to the title. They will all automatically be checked. That is now giving you credit on your progress note for having verified that data with your patient. There is an output tag that you can embed onto your progress note template in this situation that will actually hard code the statement that these pieces of data were verified and there are no changes. Now, instead of doing the check all, you also have the ability of checking each square individually as you're reviewing it. So that would be a matter of workflow locally. Now, our vaccination and health maintenance are clinical workflows. They're covered in separate videos, but in the context here of the face sheet, if we notice here in the case of our vaccines, there's color coding as well as statuses, whether it's overdue, if it's tentative, the last time it was done. And there are a variety of options you have as to the level of data that will be displayed. There will be red, black, or green font based upon those different levels. And those will be expanded upon in the individual videos. When you have multiple face sheets, you have this sub-menu you'll notice. When I click the option face sheet, you have a menu where you can choose which one you want to look at. Up here in the upper right, you have the same options. And the reason you have it in both places is, as we discussed in our encounter overview video, in our upper left, we have a collapse and expand icon. Sometimes the data on your face sheet cell is something that you really want to look at. For instance, I'll go back here to my provider workflow info, and you can see here in the upper left, my previous impression and plan. I've already made it 2 columns wide, so I don't have to use my scroll bar. But if you notice in today's HPI, I have a scroll bar. Down here in my procedure radiology history, I have a scroll bar. And depending upon the data, it may be inconvenient for you to have to scroll. So you need additional screen real estate. You can collapse the table of content menu for your encounter. And notice how that expands your screen real estate of the face sheet. But once you're doing that, if you then want to go to a different face sheet, you don't have your table of content menu anymore. So now you have your face sheet selection up here. So you can also, within expanded view, toggle between multiple face sheets. And then to bring your table of content menu back, you just click the expand button again. So in review, the face sheet is the default view of the patient encounter. Within the face sheet itself, there are 2 types. There's going to be the history-only data, and there's also then the face sheets that display history as well as visit-level data. Face sheet also includes some clinical workflows, such as health maintenance and vaccination administration. In addition, you can create custom face sheet cells that display read-only data or gives you direct access to templates. You can also have multiple custom face sheets.